Sure. Okay. I'll just pretend you're my trainer,
There you go.
my trainees.
Your trainees, exactly.
Okay. Now we just want to talk about a scenario a little bit that we've all been through as coaches. One of your players made a mistake in the game, and he's pouting about it and not doing what he should do. Now, you guys, let's talk about it a little bit. Let's break into some groups or with each other. Take a few minutes. You got 2 minutes now. Talk about what you would say to him, or what could you do? What do you do about this situation? Okay, and then I let them talk amongst each other, and then get some of their answers. Who's got what would you do?
I have an idea.
Okay, yes.
I would. I'd probably keep him in the game and see if I could just pump him up from the sidelines, like, "Come on, Jesse, keep going, let's go," or get it back. And if that didn't work, then I would probably have to pull him out of the game for lack of effort, for not trying.
Okay, yeah, those are good things. Those are all things that work. But what do we want Jesse to do ultimately?
We want him to be able to move on to the next play.
Right. So how do we do that without having to do these specific things?
Not sure.
Well, that's part of this course. Is we're talking about creating a culture, right? Create a culture where we're training our our players to take care of these kind of things themselves, right? So that we don't have to deal with them every time. One of the toolkits, part of what we're going to do is we're going to teach you some tools for this. One of the tools we talk about is a mistake ritual. Now, studies have shown that doing something physical helps with the emotional part of the mistake. All right. It goes together with the culture, though. That's the very most important part that we just talked about before, about having a culture that says mistakes are going to happen, and the best thing to do with mistakes is to move on. Right? They're going to happen. So we have that culture, and we give them this tool. We teach our players how to have a tool that it involves either flushing it or wiping your brow or coming up with a physical thing. And it's a quick way to communicate amongst your players to each other to move on. Forget about it. Now, do mistakes have any benefit, coaches?
Yeah, I think they do.
Yeah, what are the benefits of mistakes?
Well, you learn not to do that mistake again, or you try not to do it again.
That's right. There are some benefits to mistakes, but when's the best time to deal with that?
Probably not right after the mistake happened in the middle of the game.
Yeah, right in the middle of the game. Who's learned the hard way about that one? Yelling, "Don't pass the other team," usually has bad consequences. So that's part of what we're here for. So one of the things, we'll click to the next slide. So we want to talk about these gas gauges kind of represent the emotional side of these kids, because what we have to realize is that we're not coaching robots, right? We're coaching people, and people are they're little complex emotional beings. And one of the biggest things that you can understand that, the X's and the O's of coaching, we all got into this business, right? Because we all have this knowledge about how to coach and what are the right things to do and what are the right people to say and what are the right drills, and we know that. But one of the savvy and the successful coaches know what else. What else? What differentiates those coaches that know everything, but those coaches who have success?
I think the coaches that know how to connect to the kids know a lot more than just the X's and the O's.
That's right. They know how to communicate that. Okay, that's one of the whole points of this course, is teaching you the thing that's just as important as knowing what to say to the kids is how to communicate it, right? How to put them in their best spot, how to make this experience a good experience for them. So that starts with their emotions. They are complex emotional beings. All right, they're not little robots that you can just tell, "Hey, do this, do that," and they respond. They're people. They just don't. So they come full of their emotions, and ideally, what is the ideal emotional state you'd like your players to be in when that game starts?
Just a happy one.
Happy. What else?
Just enthusiastic, excited, confident.
Confident, focused, right? Calm. Okay, and then I click to the next one.
The one that says pessimistic and optimistic?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yep.
So, because studies show that if they're in the right state of emotional state, they play better, they're more optimistic, they can deal with it, they're more coachable. So, the question is, how do you get them in this state? Right? They come to you with things that are totally out of your control. They have no, you can't control how they get out of that car, whether they've got emotional problems or physical problems or what. But what can you? I mean, so the question is, so let's put them in the great speech, because they're little robots. They'll respond to, hey, be confident, be calm, be focused, be motivated. Right? Before every practice, before every game, at halftime, and that's going to work, right? No. So what can we do to get our players in the optimum state? Anybody?
I've tried just to do something silly. If I know there's a lot of tension and my players are like nervous or they're kind of picking on each other, I just come up with some kind of a fun way that just get them laughing and joking around before the game, just to sort of ease the tension.
Sure. To getting them in that calming state. That's always good. What else can we do?
I think just sometimes just telling them that you believe they can do it, pumping up their confidence about their abilities, how they do as players, how they did at practice yesterday. They worked together really well. They had great ball movement, just pointing out some specific things that they've done really well.
Sure. Yeah, there's some good positive things we can say every time. But one of the things I'm leading to is, once again, you create a culture of your team because you can't control how they come to you, right? But you can control the culture of your team. You are the maestro there, the manager. And so what kind of culture are we talking about? What do you think the ideal expectations that you want a player to have about your practices and games? Coach Kratz's practices and games are what? What do you think of that? What's the ideal from a player's perspective?
I'd like them to say that they're fun.
They're fun?
And that they learned a lot.
They learned a lot.
And they came out of it better than when they went in. Yeah,
okay. That's great. And what are some of the negative things that you wouldn't want them to have? That they're negative expectations that you'd want to eliminate?
I just want to get out of their mind that they stink, that they're not good, that they're not as good as everybody else. All those, especially with girls that I coach, they compare themselves to the other players and they get really down on themselves and say, I'm not that good, or I'm not fast, or I'm not strong, I'm not a good shooter.
Yeah, that they have good self-confidence, that they're not going to be ostracized, criticized. So you create that culture, and now these players are coming to you with those expectations, because that's what you can control. And that's the emotional tank you want to fill up, right?
Yep.
So as coaches, one of the things we can do is find ways to fill up their tank, right? So they are emotionally charged, emotionally ready. You create this on a consistent basis, day in and day out. So what are the things, and just like the players are emotional creatures, coaches are emotional creatures, right? We have to learn how to control our own emotions, because coaching isn't emotional at all, is it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, the highest highs and the lowest lows and the most frustrating. And so, part of being a savvy coach is being mature and understanding how to control that environment that gets the best out of kids, and learning yourself when we behave a certain way, how that affects the kids, the players, or how that affects the whole culture that you're trying to build up, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are those things that coaches do that destroy that culture? And then
I think just a lot of negativity and yelling and putting players down and pointing out the mistakes that they made over and over again.
And what are some things that work?
I think just supporting the kids and encouraging them, no matter what the outcome is. I think just really just being there for them and helping them understand that they're not going to be perfect. I think that's huge.
Right. What about when you encourage them? Some things that we've found that work really good is if you're very specific. You know, studies show that reinforcement, that people learn the best in an environment where there's reinforcement and correction. Okay, there's a certain ratio we'll talk about here in a few minutes, but that you've got to have both. But the reinforcement is a great learning tool if it's very specific. You know, how can you be specific in your practices instead of these players? Oh, that's 10 minutes, huh?
That's 10, yeah.
Okay. And
did you want to wrap it? You can wrap it up. You don't have to cut off right there.
Yeah, no, sure. Yeah, I'm almost done. So it talks about different ways to do this, is being very specific and how you do it. And some of the techniques I learn is I'll stop practice sometimes and point out a really great play and say, I love the way he throws it. Good job, Jonas. Good job. That works better than the negative side. And why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that?
Mm-hmm.
So it all comes down to building that culture of that emotional, mailman's here. Building that culture of that gets those players in the best place emotionally when those games start.
All right. Thank you. Nice job. I really enjoy the way that you link it all back to culture. I think that is such a crucial part of our workshops. And a lot of times new trainers get so wrapped up on the bullet points and the dots and the lines and that they forget that the overall umbrella of creating this positive culture is what will drive all of these principles. So I really like the way that you did that. I really like the way you talked about, because I say this all the time, that the players are not on remote control, but the way you said they're not robots. They're complex emotional beings. And then you had this pause. And, you know, when you actually think about these little people are complex emotional beings, then filling the emotional tank is so crucial because they're not going to be coachable. So I like that. I really like the questioning that you said, you know, when you asked what state would you like your athletes to be in? I think that's a great polling question. What would you like for them to be doing? I always ask, you know, what do they look like when their tank is full? But I really like the coach is kind of saying, ideally, if you had the perfect team here, what would they do? They'd be happy, they'd be focused, they'd be confident. And then how do we get them there? I thought that was a good line of questioning.
Okay.
And also how you talked about, you know, what you as coaches can control and what you can't control. You know, you can't control how they got out of the car, but you can control your culture. And I've had a lot of coaches push back and say, oh, kids these days, you know, they're entitled, they don't listen, they don't pay attention. And I give them just as much pushback and say, you are in control. When they step on your field or your court or your swimming pool or whatever, you are in control of that culture. And it's surprising to me how many coaches don't realize how much control they do have. So I think that was a really good point to make. My only critique I had at the beginning when you talked about mistakes happening and they have to move on, and my comment I put was, what about learning from them? And then you went then the next step and you said, now how can we, you know, why is it important? So I was thinking a lot of people talk about the mistakes are okay, the mistake ritual part and the moving on from the mistakes, but I always make sure I point out, just as you did, that mistakes are important. It's not, you can't just blow off every mistake. There is an element of learning to mistakes that is really, really important. So I like that too. And we always say too, there's a parking of mistakes you can do. There's a time to let mistakes go and forget they happened. And then there's another time to park it and pick it up later and discuss, but when is a good time to do that? And you put in that good question too, just to think about timing of when as a coach you handle mistakes. I thought that was good. My only opportunity for growth for you, I would say, would just be the pace. You know, you just to pick up the pace slightly. You talked about, I like the tone of your voice. It was very relaxed. I think that's good. I just think that somehow, like you were talking about the emotional state a little bit longer than I probably would have. I think you could have gotten to the point of the coach's role in filling in emotional tanks and draining emotional tanks. How does a coach play in that? You could have gotten to that a little bit faster, and then you would have had a little bit more time to get into, this magic ratio idea a little bit sooner. Because 10 minutes, believe it or not, 10 minutes is quick, and I don't expect everybody to get through the whole thing. But I just think you could have possibly gotten through it a little bit quicker. But I like where you're headed. I like the questions that you were asking, and you were getting me thinking, and I thought that was very good.
Good.
How did you feel doing it? Did you feel like you were rushed, or did you feel like it was, your pace was where you expected it to be?
No, I practiced it a few times, so
Okay,
I had
good.
to eliminate a lot because I've got a lot to say on the subject.
I know. And in a regular workshop, you'll have more time.
Yeah, I know. And there's a lot of examples and things and studies, so it'd be fun to bring them in, but I understand you got to get through it, and people think a lot faster than you talk, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is, as I said, I just do this for the first round because there are 32 people. So if I had 32 people going through a half an hour of all this, it would be, hours and hours and hours. This is just to give people a good chance. Some people don't practice, and some people haven't had a chance to, do this in front of a live person. So just for that, for the benefit of just being able to hear yourself and phrase things the way you want to phrase them, and hear, did that question come out okay? I think that is important. And again, you got the group talking to each other in the beginning, and I think that's really important too. So I'm pleased, Ken. I think you did a great job.
Great. Well, thank you.
All right. Well, you're welcome. So next week we're going to be back to the regular, the last hangout, which is honoring the game. And then from that point on, the week after that, you're going to be practicing a whole 20-minute section of the workshop that you would present for us, similar to this, for Ruben and Eric and myself. And that's sort of your final exam for the course. And I also take into consideration, the questions that have been answered, the discussion questions, and that type of thing all the way through. But that's where we determine if we feel you're ready to go out and do this co-present with another trainer for a live workshop. That's where we kind of decide if you're ready to do that or not. So did you have any questions about that?
No, I had a long conversation with Ruben.
Oh, okay. Oh, right. I did see that.
About the timing and when.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just so ready to get going.
Yeah. Did he help explain that to you? Did he get back to you on that?
Yeah.
Okay,
He
good.
explained how it all works. And
Good. And you were the one that asked about the athlete workshop as well, I think, weren't you?
yeah, about how do I start training for to present these other ones.
Yeah. And what did he explain there? He
said that once he wanted to get through this one first.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure I'm you guys are confident I can present these
Mm-hmm.
before we waste any time, training for the other ones.
Okay. I think because Ruben and Eric and I do kind of handle things a little bit differently. And I agree with him. I think this one is the backbone. So it's all the same principles, just presented in a different way for the other ones. We usually do it based on need as well. Like there's certain areas that just are selling athlete workshops more than coaching workshops. So we've had trainers come through this course, and I said, I need them certified in Phoenix in the athlete workshop first. So we've sort of flopped that around on specific local levels. But for the most part, it does help if you have a great understanding of the way we handle it with the coaches, then it's pretty easily transferable. The biggest issue with the athlete workshop is the management, classroom management, if you want to call it that, or audience management. How do you get, 30 to 50 high school kids to be engaged for an hour, enough to, be paying attention and really get something out of this, and not just have it be shut off your brain for an hour or be sitting there on their cell phones for an hour. So that's the biggest challenge with the athlete workshop. And that's why we have specific trainers that we recommend to do the athlete workshop, and other ones that we would say, no, let's keep them with the coaches and the parents. They're not quite ready to handle a room full of high school athletes yet, but.
Right.
So that's great. You wanting to do it is half the battle. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm ready. My past business, I gave a lot of training, was part of what I did a lot. So we trained franchises, that we train franchisees, and we train instructors. And so.
Yeah. You can tell, I can tell just from your questioning style and your presentation style that you're comfortable up there, which is good.
Well, good.
You make my job easier. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time. And if you need anything, let me know.
Okay. Thanks, Kelly.
All right. Take care, Kent. Bye-bye.
Bye.